My pain is self-chosen.
These are the differences between the 13-inch M1 MacBook Pro and the 14.2-inch M2 MacBook Pro. This is the 2023 model. This was the 2020 model. I've had it for 2 years now, give or take. I've had this for 12 days now. These are my findings. First thing first, let's talk about the display. This has an XDR mini LED display, all right? And this has your more basic display. Do I find this good? Initially, my first impression for the first 2-3 days was that the brightness was not all that. But now, as you can see, I've gotten completely used to it. And even in a well-lit room, which has some natural lighting, I find myself often turning down the brightness just a couple notches. So the brightness is A-okay. And you have 1600 nits. If you go to settings and then if you go to display right here, you can see 1600 nits. The good news is, initially my eyes were aching a little. It took me 3-4 days to get used to the XDR display. I had some pain in my eyes. I have sensitive eyes thanks to all the screen time. But I did get used to it. So that's a very big plus. And Apple calls this ProMotion. It's absolutely astounding. This display is something to behold. For the display alone, it's 0.9 inches bigger. It's added this new energy to the entire macOS experience. Like, I am a big fan of macOS, and I truly feel with this machine, macOS takes a new dimension altogether, and it's really something you have to experience. Second thing not a lot of people are talking about is 5100 mAh was the size of the 13-inch MacBook Pro battery, and 6075 mAh, that's an extra 970 odd mAh they've added. So you can say about 1000 mAh battery they've added.
I deal with life different, make that lemon squeeze. We're known for my style and identity. Better bounce back and get the cheddar cheese. I guess that's why they envy me. On track, now we gon' way up. W's as easy as a layup. Working late, stay up. Counting all the way up. Count blessings, yeah, you know it's just a water spring. You know I drip different, just the 7 seas. I deal with life different, make that lemon squeeze. We're known for my style and identity. Better bounce back and get the cheddar cheese. I guess that's why they envy me. On track, now we gon' way up. W's as easy as a layup. Working late, stay up. Counting all the way up. Count blessings, yeah, you know we pray up. Way up, pray up.
Just to give you an example of some other song also. So the sound is just another ball game altogether, but I am going to be absolutely honest with you. When I take this to work, I still connect it with my Bose Flex Bluetooth because I have it, I might as well use it. But otherwise the sound is fantastic. You don't really need an external speaker. You have two USB-C ports on the left hand side and you have a headphone jack on the right hand side on the old one. On the new one you have a MagSafe, which I haven't used yet. You have two USB-C ports and a headphone jack on the left now. And on the right you have more of some heaven. You have an HDMI out, you have another USB-C port, and you have an SDXC. This SDXC has come in very handy and it will continue to come in handy. There are times when I don't carry my dongle and it can be the most annoying experience. So thank you, Apple, for reverting back to something you shouldn't have taken out in the first place. Now both of these don't have the Apple glowing option. So if your MacBook has that and you really like that, sorry, that's not going to happen. It's difficult to keep this clean, but I like to wipe my machine very often, or often, whatever you fancy. Both are easy to open. You have a new Touch ID button. This is the old one, and the new one is much bigger. And frankly, I think the new one is maybe 15% better. Do I miss touch bar? I'm amongst some of the few people who actually miss the touch bar. I really liked it. The fact that I don't have to worry about the keys feeling weird after a while. Whereas here I have physical keys and they're all right. But after 1 year, I'm sure I'll have to do a lot of cleaning, as you know. The keys have improved slightly, but because I find these to be slightly more clicky and cushy, whereas the older one is slightly more clicky and more tactile. But having said that, I'm just concerned that after a while, again, I'll have to use a brush, to get the dirt out of from beneath the keyboard. A slightly bigger trackpad, and the best news is your wrists are going to be very happy, because with the new one, this feels so much more comfortable, as I have more real estate to put my fist here on both the left and right hand side. Whereas on the old one, as you can see, there was less room to maneuver your keystrokes, and that's obviously a great thing. I've covered the display, I've covered the sound, I've covered the keyboard, I've covered the extra ports. Let's talk about the camera. I'm not going to get into it. I'm not going to give you an example. But this camera is fantastic. I was live streaming the other day, and everybody on the live stream said that this is so much better, and they couldn't believe it. And they asked me what I'm doing for my skin, but I'm not doing anything for my skin. It just so happens that the old MacBook had a much inferior camera. So this camera, it's actually pretty good for live streaming. As you know, MacBook has great mic inputs also. I mean, the default mic which you would use for a live stream is good enough. You don't need an external mic. So big up on that. Does this get hot? No, it never gets hot. And I had one concern that, this being a 13-inch and this being a 14-inch, this would definitely be more cumbersome to carry. You know what? I had barely used this in the last 2 weeks, and that's just so that I can get used to it, and that's a very good practice. If I was to keep this around, I'd find myself going to it more often. But the fact that this has all the features that it does is really not all that bad. So if you're thinking it's going to be a big deal, getting a 14-inch MacBook, I think I only have good news for you, and there's no bad news. I would say 95% of you will have no issues, and the 5% you're just complaining because you like to. Now, my old machine had an 8 GB, has 8 GB of RAM, and this has 16 GB. So in terms of performance, I can have Chrome running, I can have Safari running, I can have Mail running, I can have WhatsApp running, I can have Pages running, music, as well as Spotify and Evernote, and I won't see any performance lag. Whereas on this guy, as you might know, if you have an 8 GB RAM MacBook, it is hell to pay. It's not fun. Now, iMovie is not all that fast, I must concede. I was a bit disappointed by the fact that Final Cut and both iMovie are not as fast as I was expecting them to be. But the good thing is, even if you're using that, your machine doesn't die. It still remains alive. You can be burning a film or burning a movie in the backdrop, and you can go to Safari and do what you gotta do, man. I've never used the MagSafe on this, and I always use, when I'm home, I have 100 kVA USB-C adapter from Apple, and when I'm in the office, I have a 67 watt adapter, and I use that. I said kVA, I don't know why, sorry for that. The other thing is battery cycles. I've only used 4 or 5. I haven't done a battery health, I haven't done a battery test, discharging test. I'll do that soon. The form factor is easy to get to. Who is this for? This is for somebody who, is kind of bored with the 13-inch and wants something different, a better display. If you work and, you look at your computer for 40 hours to 60 hours in a week, you might want to consider getting the new one, because it might just give you a new jolt, and it has done that for me. I find myself a little more driven, but that could be things I'm telling myself to keep myself happy for how much money I spent. In terms of Indian rupees, I'll tell you exactly what I spent. I spent 1,14,000 for this in 2021 April, and on this new machine, Although the rack rate is 2 lakh rupees, I paid 1,76,000 including GST. So I will get that GST component of 18% back. So 1.47, 1.48, and this was about 98,000 plus tax, give or take. Is it pricey? Yes. Is it very pricey? Yes. But I think I made the right decision because, like I said, the macOS experience on this is fantastic. It's something which you will need to use for yourself to be able to appreciate. I hope I was helpful in this quick comparison. There are many parameters I missed out. I will be doing a lengthier one if you guys appreciate this. Drop a comment, hit the like button, subscribe for more content.